Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm really excited today for our guest, Brad Weber.
Hey,
Woo!
hey, Bill, how are you?
Right. Well, we're not going to edit this afterwards in the sense that I can add in the canned applause for you. But next time, maybe when we have you on, we'll have some intro music and have some fun with it.
Okay, I don't know, depending on how today goes, whether or not I'll have applause in the future, or if I'll be invited back.
I've been at a few events with you. I mean, people clap as soon as you enter. Come on now, come on.
Whatever.
So, all right. So today's conversation, right? It's all about content marketing. We'll go into the future landscape of it, the good, bad, the ugly, and of course, the role of a very professional MC and host on content marketing. Not to push you on that one a little bit, but really, what I always like to start off with is a few kind of definitions so that we're all on the same page, or maybe we're not on the terms that we're going to use today. So, Brad, number one question: what's your favorite color?
Blue.
Oh, all right. You answered that without even flinching. Okay. So, really, we're getting serious. What do you think content marketing is? And answer that not specifically for association, nonprofits, and events yet. Answer that
Right.
as in a generalized of what do you think content marketing is?
Yeah, it's very interesting. The first thing that buzzes in my head when I hear content marketing is I start thinking about how I consume as a consumer, and thinking about like, okay, well, I'm a binge watcher, so I like to watch all these shows, but I have something has to attract me to that, to be able to even click on it and think, is this worth my time? So I really am taking this more as a consumer approach, and also like, but what is it like? What is it about that attracts me? What is about that keeps me? I think that's the key, is what keeps me going. And is it a one-hit wonder kind of thing, or is this like something that I want to be like, oh, this is cool. Like, how is this going to evolve and how it's going to keep going? So that, I think, just top of mind. That's kind of how it kind of resonates with me.
You brought in something really interesting: consumer. And the number one question that I always get whenever I'm having conversations outside association event industry, right, or anything outside of B2B is, why are you talking to me about consumers? What would you say to that?
Well, every aspect of what they do is being consumed by individuals. And so consumers, to me, I don't look at a consumer just as a buyer or someone just, I mean, I consume all day long, every day. I'm consuming information. I'm making choices of what I want to, educate myself on, how I want to entertain myself. And then of course there's the actual art of consumption, and that's eating and drinking. But I really look at this as, no matter what we're doing, no matter if we're attending an event or we're doing something personal or whatever, we are making choices on how we're going to use our time and how we're going to consume our time.
That's very important distinguishment right there, is how we're going to utilize our own time, because that's the most valuable thing to us. A lot of times when I answer the question of why are you talking to me about consumers when we live in a B2B world, our world specifically, is because I don't look at people as businesses. I look at people as people. And a business is made up of people, and those people are the consumers.
Right.
And there is a huge blend and immersion between the various marketing strategies and tactics from B2C to B2B now. And the more that we begin to focus on the actual person rather than just the company, there's, ABM strategies that are out there and they do all of that. But the more that we focus on the person from a content marketing standpoint, the better we are. And so your definition of content marketing for me, and this is not scripted, I was really hoping that we would be different on this, but we're not.
Okay.
It really is all about.
Well, I'm smarter than I thought I was. So how about that?
It is about figuring out what your audience likes to consume, right? What's going to be of value to them and how they consume. Right? And so that's why I think it's important that you're creating in the beginning, from an experimental standpoint, all pieces of your content marketing in the different mediums. So written, audio, and video.
Right. It's funny. Somebody said to me one time, I joked when I was seeing a gig, and I said, look, my goal here is to keep you entertained, keep this going, keep the storyteller going. And I said, because there is this thing out there with the fatigue of doing this. But then I challenged the audience and I said, but yet you'll sit on your couch for 11 hours and binge watch, some type of content. And what I loved about what people said in the chat box, they said, yeah, but there's a plot and there's an actors and there's this but they all go down to is there was excitement built up in the marketing of going into this. And I thought, this is very, very interesting conversation around, consuming and binging versus, trying to do something like a smaller version of a webinar or something.
That's why storytelling has become so popular in content marketing or any of your email campaigns. And before we move on, the only other clarification I like to make from content marketing is it is not marketing copy or messaging. It's not sales copy or messaging. There shouldn't be anything in your content that's actually pushing them to buy something from you. It could subconsciously be there because they are learning and gaining value from you and therefore building trust. And you and your brand are building that authority, which we all know the more they trust you, the more that they want to work with you and buy from you.
That's true.
Right. But if your content is all about, hey, you should do X, Y, and Z. If you can't, just hire us. They're not going to do that. Of course, you can always end it, hey, for example, like on every single one of our blog posts, it's Epic Creative Group is X, Y, and Z. We do blah, 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 blah. Right. But we're not selling it. During the entire piece of the content, we're not selling you. We're just telling you what our company's about, just so that you know at the end of it.
But do you think there's been an evolution of content? I mean, I'm marketing back to I used to totally love Mad Men. I watched that whole series twice. And I watched that whole marketing world as the time has gone. I mean, do you think that content marketing has even evolved just over the last couple of years into a whole nother way?
Immensely. It's completely changed.
Completely.
Right? I mean, so if you think about from the Mad Men days, right, content marketing was all about what? Magazines, ad space, billboards, maybe even TV commercials. When we talk about content marketing, right, in a strictly digital front, you have so many different mediums that you can go after. From something that you can control yourself right now as an organization, as a team, as an individual, you can do your blog posts, you can do your videos, you can create your own podcasts. And in fact, you can literally do this right here, strip the audio and make it a podcast. So it's not extra work on you. Right. All of that you can control, but you can also go out to programmatic, right? So ads that are delivering content focused imagery to things outside of social media. So I think of Wall Street Journal or whatever else is out there that is not social media, right? Then you can go into other, I guess some of the terms that's being used out there right now is called dark social, right? It's things like Slack or Teams. It's things that you can't actually attribute to what your content marketing is, or, people linking back to your website because you don't know where it's coming from, right? Because it's an internal word of mouth referral. Right. That's all part of content marketing and your strategy, because your content's so valuable. People are talking about it. And then, of course, you've got billboards now, too, but not so much TV ads. Streaming TV ads is where I would say there's a huge differentiation. So from Mad Men era, a lot has changed, but not really. It's just taking that copy, that content that they're creating for the digital ad space, right, or the physical ad space, and producing it in ways, like you said before, the ways that your audience specifically wants to consume it.
Yep.
So,
absolutely.
It's good. All right. So a quick side note, what are you binging right now?
Oh, wow. So I started watching, it's really intense. It's called Euphoria.
Oh, that is with, what's her name from Spider-Man?
Yeah, it is. It's so incredibly intense.
Zendaya.
Yeah, and so I'm binging on that. I'm embarrassed to say this. I just wanted to step away for a minute and just have a good old laugh again. So I re-binged and rewatched the entire Schitt's Creek again. Love that show. Just because I just think it's brilliant. But Euphoria is very intense, and the acting is incredible. And I get just pulled in every time.
All right. We finished Ozark, and now we are binging Outlander.
Oh, yeah.
Let me just say it's a bit steamy. I'll leave it at that. It's a bit steamy. I was not expecting it.
I think there's a lot of steaminess out there these days. So, so
All right. So we've kind of just really, in our words, determined what content marketing is. And of course, everyone's going to have a different variation of what it is. Before we go on into, the good, the bad, the ugly part of it, where do you think distribution of content marketing falls into play?
oh, when you say distribution, are you referring just in general? Are you talking about events? What are you talking about?
In general, and then we
General.
can specify it with events.
So, it's funny. I again, I always go back to my own consumer behaviors or how I take in information, and you know, I am finding more and more, even though I'm a scroller when it comes to social media and that type of thing, I am mesmerized by how the algorithms work and how they seem to figure me out based on obviously things I've clicked on. So I'm actually intrigued by that, and it actually catches my attention. So I see a lot more content based on that. I, you know, I like to get on business platforms and see from the business perspective. I'm a big one on LinkedIn, and I do see a lot of content there, and I find it to be the most clickable for me. As far as I will pause and I will actually do that. As far as what
Describe
cat
clickable for a second.
clickable meaning when I'm scrolling and all of a sudden I'll like slow down. Like I'm a big fast screen reader, and I'll like, and then all of a sudden something grabs my attention. I'm like, yep, that's clickable. I'm gonna click on it. Take a minute here. Video seems to get my attention quicker than anything else, and I find myself video obviously, and then but if I see a flurry of words that there isn't something in those words that capture my attention immediately, I have a tendency to slide by. And so I've been trying to kind of calm myself down on all the ways I take in information and how I consume it. But I would say right now, from distribution for me right now is really video content and kind of that quick bite information.
All right. So keeping on the distribution topic, and I know I've gone a little crazy here from our initial questions, but distribution is a big thing when it comes to content marketing, because if you're not distributing it effectively, well, no one's going to read your stuff or watch your stuff or anything along those lines. So
Right.
from what you've seen in the event space specifically, associations, nonprofits, events, all of that, do you think, and I'll answer as well, from my opinion, do you think that they are effectively distributing the forms of content that they have right now? Or do you think there's some room for improvement?
I definitely think there is room for improvement. And again, I think we're in this evolution time. As we continue to evolve. I'm a big, fast, move forward person, not look behind. So that's the innovations and stuff that have come out of the last few years. So I think we're still growing in this area. I think there's opportunity. I think we're still again trying to find what's the new behavior of who's actually who we're trying to attract as we move forward. So I definitely think there's definitely room for improvement.
I would agree. And, we'll use the word COVID. This past 2 years, 2.5, whatever it's been, it's just been a blur.
I think it's been like 35, but go ahead.
35, yeah. The grays are coming out of it.
Right.
From a technology standpoint, it moved the association and event world rapidly ahead. From a marketing sense, I don't necessarily think that we've caught up to what B2B and B2C are doing outside of the industry. So I think we're still lagging a little bit behind there, but we've got this opportunity at this very moment because of the technology that's in play to really catch up and actually expand upon it even more than what they're doing in the outside world, right? Outside of the
Right.
bubble that we kind of live in.
Right.
Content marketing being one of them, and distributing that content being the major focus. And so I'll refer back to this. It's right. You have an event, you've got tons of content at that event typically, right? And that content pretty much, for the most part, even in a virtual world, because not everyone is doing this, dies at that event. And I don't want to sound so
Absolutely.
graphic, but it literally just dies at the event. But there's
Absolutely.
thousands of other people out there that want to see it.
It is, to me, I think it's the number one crux. I still to this day, I remember people like, oh, I'm sorry I missed your session. I wish I could have. I wish I could have. And the fact that like, when here's what's so wild about what we're talking about. We just talked about binge watching. If we miss a show because it's the new episode's on Tuesday, well, guess what? We're going to be able to catch up with it and get that show or that content. So I do find it fascinating that we're still kind of in that world where it's a moment in time, and it should be a moment of all time.
Ooh, I like that. I'm going to use
You can
that.
steal
Thank you.
it. All right.
Thank you. A moment of time, but it should be a moment in all time. I like that. I like that a lot. All right, so let's go back to our original questions here. Thanks for taking that sidebar with me. But
Sure.
as soon as we started talking about content marketing, I wanted to make sure that we all understood the importance of distribution of it, because we could do this video, and if I don't distribute it effectively, no one's going to see it. And the point of this is for everyone to see it and gain at least one piece of nugget of information from it. All right, so we're not going to talk about the future yet. I want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And cue the old Western music.
Wah, wah, wah.
So what do you see? Let's focus now onto the association and event market. What do you see as the good in the content marketing that's currently going on?
Well, the good, I think, is the toe dipping out and trying something new and different and being more innovative. I am feeling that for a lot of in the association world, it is a bouncing forward, not bouncing back. And I saw this thing the other day. It's like said it's the death of any business or meeting or career is not the way it's not we've always done it this way. And so I feel like that's starting to evolve away from that. So I do think that
thanks for quoting the post that I posted. Appreciate it.
That's where I saw it. You're right. You're absolutely right. Oh my
I didn't
God.
even come up with it, and it's one of my most popular posts from a reshare.
That's so hysterical. That is absolutely right. Oh my God. So I think in regards to I do feel like there are some risk taking going on, and it actually shouldn't even be risk. It should be like baroque now that this is what we should be doing. But I do think I see a bit more risk taking in that regard, which I'm pleased about. It's innovative. It's trying. It's really trying to understand. Yeah, particularly what I'm finding is in the medical world, they, I do a lot of work in that area. They really are trying to capture content and having it available because they're seeing their workers, or frontline, their attendees can't get there, and they do not want anyone to feel left out. So I do feel like there is some innovation there.
Well, and it's not like the frontline workers right now have that much time,
right?
So
right.
They have to have it. And what did you say before? Of all time, not that moment in time.
Not that moment. Not that. Yeah. So I think in that regard.
So it's a different model, and I agree with you. I think associations and events are finally becoming less risk averse, and getting to the point that they can feel comfortable experimenting in little bite-sized experiments and saying, no, this isn't going to work for us. Ooh, there's some traction. Maybe we can do this. So I agree with you on that one there. Also, from a good standpoint, I am starting to see more video coming out there. I thought that we would have seen that a little bit more already, considering years and years ago, even SEER came out with this data years ago too, that people are just consuming video more. And it doesn't have to be this whole, professional lower thirds, all this other stuff that's out there. It can be a simple back and forth. It can be you're outside and you had a thought about, one of your membership campaigns and how important it is to your members, and you just produced a quick video on your phone. Authenticity goes a long way right now when it comes to videos, as opposed to these full-on production ones. And I think that's important for them to understand.
Let me toss something at you. So I recently was talking to someone about video and about the importance of it and how people are consuming that. I mean, look, you asked me how I consume, and I said video.
Well,
this person
clearly
actually
you
has
also
done,
read my posts. So
and I clearly read your posts. And I was interesting was this person said, I'm not sure that video is the right thing for us because I think people are so fatigued from being on these types of discussions or seeing or going attending meetings this way. And it made me really pause for a minute because I don't look at, when I have to get on a call or something, I don't have that same feeling. So it's like, we got to be careful that, we're not trying to take something that's a technology that we're used to connect and like making that seem like it can also project over here for content as well.
I would agree that there's some fatigue when it comes to video, mostly because there's been millions and millions of Teams meetings, Zoom meetings, virtual events, virtual meetings, all of that. And so what we found, and not from a sales standpoint to pitch anyone on here, but what we found that has been very successful in many of the organizations that we specifically work with is creating bite-sized pieces from that content. And so that's exactly what we're going to do with this video podcast, as well as create bite-sized pieces of important, relevant things that were said. And those are going to resonate with optimized hashtags on all the social channels, essentially with different individuals, because something you said in the beginning probably won't resonate with everybody, but it'll resonate with some people. And so while there's fatigue for long form, right, I wouldn't say that there's fatigue overall from video. And what we've also seen from a lot of research and analytics is that long form written content is coming back. They'll scan it, but they want more information at once rather than having to research or click on multiple things everywhere else.
Right. Interesting.
All right. So that was the good. Did we get to the bad yet? No? Wow.
No.
I guess they're pretty good. We should just end it at that. All right. So we can combine bad and ugly. What are you seeing?
Because they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, they do, right? Yeah. So what are you seeing as bad and ugly from a content marketing standpoint in the industry?
It's interesting. And I agree with you 98% on what you said just a minute ago, where you said about people, you can do your phone, you can do whatever, and have these like moments. And I'm all about authentic, really cool moments. By the same token, on the bad and ugly, sometimes people, again, it goes back to fatigue. If the quality of what you're looking at or hearing isn't good, it's really ugly. So if you can't hear, or it's weird stuff going on, or it's a really bad picture, or you can't see the person really, and I mean, it's like immediately your brain's like, oh. So but again, I live and die off of being on stage or camera work, but I do look at sometimes just quality, just taking a little extra minute to making sure it is quality. So that's more of that's fixable. That's very fixable. It's just taking that little bit of extra time. I think also is not everything's one size does not always fit all. And I think sometimes people try to take certain types of content and try to make it do something that's not supposed to.
Try to jam it down everyone's throats. I'll put it in the ugly terms. They take one piece and they try to jam it.
Right. So I see that happening. I also think you have to be really sensitive and strategic when it comes to how you want to get content out around maybe big sponsors or other things like that. Sometimes that can be a miscue. And I've seen some good ones and I've seen some really bad ones. And so I think, again, I don't believe that one size fits all. I think that every time you don't necessarily have to customize everything, but you also can't just blanket certain things and expect it to work.
Personalization. So it's a huge focus in marketing in general these days, and it has to be a focus in your content, right? So you're producing content for a specific subgroup of your membership, of your event, because it's not going to resonate with everybody. Right. Let me go back to the 2% of disagreement. I got to get my piece in now too.
Hey, I only said 2%.
So I 100% agree with you on quality. When it comes to the production value, I think there's a difference in the content. And this flows into what you said after that, right? Different content needs to be produced for different results, different groups, different everything. And so there's pieces of content that can be done that are of lesser quality on your phone. Whereas conversations like this, right, or conversations at events, I think need to be of higher production value.
Yeah.
And that is key when we talk about the last bullet point, and we'll lead you up into that one. And so I agree with you. And I hope this reduces it to 1% disagreement now instead of the 2. That as long as you're being strategic, as you mentioned, about your content goals and
Yes.
about the content you're going to produce, you can figure out which ones can be, spur of the moment, phone pieces of content from a video standpoint, and which ones can be production value.
Yeah, no, we just closed that loop. We're 100% there.
I was a little worried there. I was a little worried because it's not like we don't, agree on everything.
Well, I will.
All right. So we talked about the good, we talked about the bad, which is a combination of the ugly. I think you hit it home on the ugly, and we're trying to produce content in every association. Honestly, I'm seeing do this an event, producing content for a one size fits all, and it just doesn't work. And so that's where you do need to figure out what's going to work for the different sector groups, different industry categories, whatever you want to call them these days, of your audience. And also, I think that's where a lot of different things that we're saying today will resonate with the different audiences. And that's where creating those bite-sized versions of it, of your long form content, can also help you distribute that effectively too.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's talk about the future. Take the crystal ball out, and what do you see?
I'm fascinated in really studying like these new parallel kind of meta, things that are going to be happening. And it freaks me out just because it's like super technology and I have a struggle with that. But, I've been looking at that and thinking, oh my God, I can barely manage my own life. How can I manage this whole alternate universe life? But I'm super intrigued by it. I do think there's going to be more activity around that. So I do see that being the future. Look, I don't like certain words that were overused during the last few years. Like I don't use the P word, pivot. I don't like to say hybrid. I like to talk about omni-channel, that type of thing. These are not curse words. Having distribution that's going to be right for your audience, to me, is here to stay. And there's so many people repel against the thought of ever having to have another virtual aspect. I'd be careful with that, is my point. And so I think that, in associations, the goal is to associate and to bring people together. And if you're able to attract more people to get more of your education, regardless of how you can bring that to them, I think is a win. And so I do think we have to pay attention to that. So I do see that still maintaining. I think we're going to see it evolve. So I'm very bullish on the fact that we're going to see multiple distribution channels moving forward. And I do think that this kind of meta world is going to, have an ultimate impact.
Can you say that one more time? The part about the role of an association, why that association was born. Can you say that one part one more time? Because I want that to resonate with associations, because I think it's really important that we start going back to basics of why that association was actually formed.
It was formed by bringing people together in causes and like areas to educate, stimulate, to bring a voice together, to advocate. And it's an associate. So I love when I say association for associate. And again, I think about the organizations I belong to. I belong to them because they touch me. I want to see that either that interest or that part of my professional life grow. And I only learn by the fact that I get to meet other people with similar interests, and that together we can do this powerful work.
Great to hear. Great to hear, one, that you belong to organizations as well, especially being in the industry, but great to hear that you belong to ones that you're also passionate about and are gaining value from them.
Yeah.
So my 2 pieces for this is agree with you. Metaverse is next step. but I think the definition of metaverse, and actually I just released a blog post about this today on what is the metaverse, content marketing in the metaverse, marketing in general in the metaverse. I think we need to fully understand what the metaverse is first, and I don't think we know that yet, because people think that the metaverse is whatever, Zuckerberg says it is, and going
Yeah,
into,
well,
the Sandbox or Decentraland or all these others. But if you also think about it, some of the virtual event platforms that are out there right now created their own mini metaverses because people were avatars walking around. So, Fortnite, it's a metaverse. Some of these video
right.
games that are these RPG games that are out there that people are literally creating their own characters for and living daily, it's a form of metaverse. So once we fully start to grasp our understanding around metaverse, and not just from one person's thought of it, it will drastically change how people will react to it, right? It's not just going to be Ready Player One style, oh, I live in this part here, but I'm rich in the metaverse. That may be the case, but it's not just going to be that. And when it comes to marketing in there, especially from a content marketing, I'm excited to see what happens, because it's not going to be as boring as, buying a 2 million Bitcoin property or whatever and putting up a billboard sign and saying that's my content marketing. It's going to get interesting. They've already thrown events, right? It was Ariana Grande threw an event
Right.
in I forget where actually, but it's already happening, and technology is already starting to come out. AR, mixed reality, all of that is
Right.
part of the metaverse. I don't think we're there yet, but I think eventually the first portion of metaverse might actually be, virtual reality, what people think it is. But I think mixed reality is going to be the true metaverse, where we are still walking around as ourselves, but we're seeing something completely different than what's actually right there in the real world.
Well, let
Augmented.
me just tell you what, if virtual reality, if I'm going to live in that world, then it needs to change, because I have to take Dramamine every time I use it. So
I'm not. I actually don't like them either. So we'll see where that future, but it's interesting that we are on the same kind of wavelength when it comes to what we're seeing as the future of marketing or content marketing in general too. Not even just from events. Events have I think the best opportunity to take advantage of the metaverse than anyone
no
else.
question about it. No question about it.
But from there. All right, so let's wrap up with this. We talked about quality. We talked about production. And I firmly believe in this as well. How do you see, and what is the importance of the value behind having a professional MC, professional host for your quality, webinars, for your in-person events, your virtual events, things like that? Let's talk more about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. You talked about storytelling, and a great MC, master ceremonies host, moderator, whatever we're going to call it. By the way, we need to come up with a term. I was working today with a group in London. The term moderator in London or in UK means proctor for like testing. So it was very fascinating, and we all agreed that we need to come up with some global terms that make more sense. But anyway,
I'll leave that one up to you.
I'll see what I can do there. So, it's about weaving. It's taking and understanding what needs to be accomplished, whether it's an hour, it's 4 days, it's 365 days. What is it that needs to be accomplished? Diving into the culture, representing, because when you're an MC, you're representing the brand. Like you're being entrusted to represent that brand. You're introducing, CEOs, VIPs, boards of directors, and you become them, and they trust you. And so it's, for me, what I love about it, and it's just my passion, is starting out, understanding what we need to accomplish, and then making sure that from minute one to minute done, we have weaved that story. Every single thing has been touched the way we need to touch it, and then everyone, it's seamless. then you have the whole other side. There is an entertainment value to it too. I mean, you got to keep the audience motivated, whether they're right there in front of you in the room or they're on screen, is keeping people engaged, keeping them feel like they're part of something, making them feel important, that they actually, there's a reason that they signed on to give a part of their time that day. So it's, to me, it's very critical. Also, frankly, a lot of times, you're on these, you're hearing someone speak or whatever, they get stuck. It's the MC's responsibility to keep that thing going, fill that gap. I always tell people when I bound on stage, I said, I have a couple roles here. One of them is to be your land-based cruise director, because when you see me, means time where, eventually we're going to go to have some kind of fun party, or we're going to have lunch now or whatever. But then it's also to keep that motivation going. So it really is taking your event to the level that it needs to go, and professionalism.
Okay. So something you said really stuck out in my mind across that long answer. No, I'm just kidding. It was a very good answer. So something stuck out. And you said that you're representing their brand. And I think that's very important to understand, because as a professional, which is what you are, an MC, host, we won't call you a moderator now, but as a professional MC and host, in order for you to represent their brands, you have to come off a certain way. And most importantly, you have to have the ability to never turn it around to be about you.
Never.
You know how incredibly that hard is, just from a human nature standpoint? Everything has to be about moi for everybody. And I don't think that everyone understands the reality of an MC position, that it's never about them. And it's extremely exhausting, because there's certain things that I know from, personal experience, you could just throw right in there and give them a great example of why this is that. But at the same time, you can't, because it's about their brand.
It is, and that's what's so important. So something that happens that, and it happens to me a lot, where someone reaches out and we start to talk about the prospect of doing it, and maybe they'll be like, "Well, aren't you kind of Brad in a box that you just have like this shtick you do?" And there are people out there that do that. And I had someone one time ask me if I was a DJ. I'm like, I don't even know how to, put a needle on a record. So it's, and so it's like, so to me, it's immersing into the culture. And look, let me tell you, sometimes it's not the right match. Like, there have been a couple of times where I've been like, I don't know if this is the right thing. And what's great about it is that you can when you dive in and you really understand, is that you can have those conversations. And so to me, it's a rush for me. It's a privilege every time I do it.
So I'll go, out of everything that you've said for there, that to me is the most important, because if you put anybody up on a stage, if you put anybody up on a screen, on a webinar, they're going to turn it around to be about them. I mean, I do it all the time. That's also why I'm not a professional at this, because my human nature is to figure out how we could, have a conversation around what's beneficial, right? I'm always trying to give value, but at the end of the day, I've got enough experience that I can tell you stories about myself that are going to lend to you seeing value for that, but that's still making it about me. And it's very, very hard for people not to do that. And I think that is one of the most important reasons why you need to have a professional MC to deliver the quality content that you want, especially on instances like this for, monthly webinars, weekly webinars, thought leadership programs, in-person events, all those, or virtual events, all of those types. So that struck the chord for me. So I appreciate that. Cool. Now we are almost at minute done, as you put it. So I want to leave off with any other tidbits that you'd like to put out into the metaverse, or, the real world, for anyone out there in regards to the content that they're going to be putting out there.
Just a quick recap. Take a chance, get creative, when you're, and also think about the myriad audience that you have. Like, again, back to one size does not fit all, look to see the demographics, see how they consume, see, come up with that right balance, that type of thing. So my thing is like, try it, just try it. And, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be scary, but it's going to be amazing. So I just say, just try it.
All right. We'll leave everybody on that note. Could be scary, but it's going to be amazing. So thank you, Brad, from from Brad Weber Consulting Group. You can find him online. We'll link to him. Brad, this has been an invigorating conversation. I truly admire you and everything that you do for the industry. And so I appreciate your time, which I know is very valuable. And I appreciate all the insights that you've given to the audience. So thank you. And thank you for everyone else tuning in on whether you're listening to a 1-minute part of this or the whole thing. We'll talk to you next time.
Take care. Good to see you, Bill.